Well, the background is he's saying that they still didn't do anything wrong. He said that he doesn't want to be accused of indifference, but they are taking responsibility for the fact that this did happen. It is an extraordinary allegation. These 12 customers laid out in detail in the statement of claim that went to the federal court today, each of them showing that there was an opportunity for the bank, if they were doing the tracking they were supposed to be doing, to have picked up on at least potential child exploitation sooner. In one case, customer one, they've said that the bank account was opened in November 2013. It was in November 2014 that they were transferring money to someone who was found to have been transferring money to people who were live streaming child sex abuse, and then it wasn't picked up by the bank until 2019. That case in itself would just have most people absolutely horrified. There's 12 instances of that laid out here. So there's the two battles the bank will be fighting on this front. It will be the broad systemic issues, the fact that there were these 19 million transactions that weren't vetted as they were supposed to be, but also these cases as well.
Absolutely. And there were the warnings, weren't there? There was a warning more generally about loopholes. That was 6 years ago. There was a specific briefing 3 years ago. There was this responsibility to track and report this. This is just incredible. What else is Westpac accused of?
Well, the interesting thing is Westpac does have a history of really fighting back against the regulator. They were successful in fighting the bank bill swap case, which was an interest rate rigging case brought against all four banks. They were the only ones that fought back. The other three settled with APRA, and they were the ones who eventually won. And they've also fought responsible lending requirements, and they've won in what's become an absolutely historic case about responsible lending. It's called the Wago and Shiraz case because it was such a bizarre decision by the judge. And so this seems like the one fight that they've got on their hands that they can't win. It just is playing so poorly, the fact that Brian Hartzer had to come out so quickly today. Even though it was a telephone hookup with journalists to respond to this, it's not going to go away. This is as serious as it gets. It goes to the heart of what so many people would expect of anyone with a conscience. The idea that you could have this information and not be tracking it. If you or I suspected anyone of this, we would be on the police's doorstep in a heartbeat, and it's something where people expect the same of their institutions, especially someone who took home $4 million for their paycheck last year.
Well, that is incredible. And it's not just the pedophilia, which I think is the most disgusting thing about it. We also don't know whether there's money gone to terrorism, for instance. We do not know even that. What do you think? Well, we've already seen the bank shares, right, fall 2.5% today. There's a reputational damage. But what is this actually going to cost the bank in fines, do you think?
Well, that's a really interesting discussion. So CBA was accused of something similar by AUSTRAC last year. They had 53,000 alleged breaches that they agreed to with AUSTRAC, and they paid a record fine at the time of $700 million. Now, that was twice as much as they allocated in their budget to pay. Now, if you compare that to potentially 23 million breaches of the legislation for $11 billion in transactions, if you extrapolate that out to its nth degree, it's about $290 trillion that they could be up for. It's really unrealistic, especially in the case where they've said that they are agreeing to the statement of claim and they are cooperating with the regulator, that they'd get anything that extraordinary, because it would just shut them down overnight, and the government wouldn't want that either, because that would cause all kinds of issues in the Australian economy. But it's likely to be a very big fine to make sure the message gets through. And if there aren't heads that roll at Westpac, if not the CEO, someone very senior, there will certainly be questions to answer.
Well, whose will it be, do you think?
I'd most likely guess that it would be Brian Hartzer's, because this is so extraordinary. But today on the conference call, he was asked by about 4 or 5 different journalists if he thought he would step down, and he said absolutely not. He said he's going to look at how to manage the response to this and make sure it doesn't happen again. It's all going to be down to the board. If we see any kind of stop on trading this week, that will be the signal that things are going to happen. Otherwise, they might be riding out the storm. And more likely, what often does happen in these cases is you see a lot of middle management go.